I'm Ashley McGuire, and this is the X-Treme Makeover for NU 713, Organizational and Systems Leadership for the Advanced Practice Nurse, Spring of 2024. Today we'll be looking at miscommunication in the workplace, how it occurs, cafeteria conversations, patterns of relating, patterns of meaning, and making meaning, how to communicate, ways of talking, listening, and being, innovation, reflecting on the story, and how to change the story of miscommunication in the workplace. Our objectives are to look at a typical conversation in the workplace, assess what changes need to be made to communicate in a proper manner, relate conversation to organizational missions, values, and visions, find what it takes as an organization to communicate and build professional relationships through ways of talking, listening, and being, identify patterns of relating and the patterns of meaning in connection to the outcome of organizational goals and aspirations, connect appropriate communication to the advancement of innovation, discover what challenges may be barriers to organizational goals and innovation, reflect on miscommunication and critically analyze how it could have been improved, and devise a plan on how to prevent future miscommunication. I was admitting a patient from the freestanding emergency department and was in another patient's room when they called to give report. Due to this, another nurse took report for me. The nurse taking report for me was told that the patient was a left below the hip amputee, so he asked if they had any wounds. The nurse from the freestanding emergency department replied that the patient's skin was fully intact with no issues. I proceeded back to my desk and added the patient into the computer to read the electronic medical record. In the documentation section, I found a very interesting note from an ED physician describing a sacral pressure ulcer with a protruding, exposed femur. Immediately, when the patient arrived on the intensive care unit, I got two other nurses to help me turn the patient, to do a full assessment, and there was indeed a protruding femur with no dressing, no wound care, and purulent drainage, indicating infection. Pictures of the wound were taken, and a wound care consult was immediately ordered. However, the patient still expired 2 weeks later with sepsis. This was a clear miscommunication issue. So, some typical conversations we have in the workplace are how to succeed in nursing, our patient scenarios, personal life, future aspirations, how to improve our staffing, and complaints about staffing shortages. The culture of my organization, based on conversations, seems to be focused on moving forward, correcting problematic policies and procedures, and to an extent frustrated because of the lack of staffing. Now, organization as conversation can essentially be described in this quote. Communication fuels progress, and an organization is only as effective as the conversations it's having. A business is just a set of individuals communicating as a team, trying to achieve a shared goal. Conversations within organizations take a variety of forms, such as one-on-one conversations, feedback dialogues, development reviews, team meetings, company-wide memos from executive boards, all hands-on-deck meetings, and internal marketing comms. And in these things, the typical 4 types of communication are initiative, understanding, performance, and closure. Initiative is to share new ideas, set goals, agree on visions, and decide upon the actions required to bring these things to life. Understanding conversations is how to build on current awareness and knowledge with the aim to motivate and set a clear path for success and to help avoid misunderstanding and the many mistakes it can cause. Performance conversations are directly correlated to direction, where leaders provide context for the task, offering a why, with specific instructions such as when, where, and how the task should be done, to lead with positive guidance and encouraging accountability. Closure conversations support an honest review of actions with feedback offered across the team. Now, patterns of relating is essentially just how people interact with one another. This forms an organization's culture as a whole. This can come from face-to-face conversations, emails, or meetings. Patterns of meaning are specific themes that exist in organizations, such as our missions and values, that serve to inform the collective organizational identity. My organization's mission is to extend the healing ministry of Christ through holistic, people-centered healthcare. In doing so, we hope to set a new standard in service and devotion to the people of Central Alabama. Our vision is integrity. We're devoted to honor God through our words and actions, honoring God in all that we do. Service, we're devoted to ministering to every life with respect, compassion, and dignity. Quality, we're devoted to defining the high standard of care and service in Central Alabama. Transparency, we're devoted to being open and honest in communication and action with integrity at the center of all that we do. And innovation, we're devoted to exploring simple solutions to existing and future challenges, such as the miscommunication mentioned previous to this. Ways of talking, listening, and being. Ways of talking in an organization are patterns that can stabilize and reinforce culture. Each conversation prevents an opportunity for reinforcing existing values and norms. So the choices we make in daily conversations result in a pattern of speech or habitual ways of talking. Ways of listening are gestures and responses that create a collaborative understanding or listening. We're being attentive to the conversation, paying attention to an important aspect of the collaborative communication process. Ways of being is essentially just being aware and awake in the moment to cultivate, participate, and contribute to the organization. Innovation is thinking outside the box. It's radical ideas that continue to evolve practice and create new ways of thinking. It's continuously challenging and moving practice forward based on evidence. It's building on a foundation of evidence-based practice, relying on connections in multiple parts of the organization. However, it still cannot be accomplished by a single aspect alone. It's a network of people who collaborate, envision the future, overcome barriers, and form a new vision and direction for the healthcare system to evolve. It is the force that propels evidence creation and provides a practice for leaders to use to evolve the organization and implement energy into the system to create change. Now, my organization innovates through the universal use of continuous cardiac monitoring on all intensive care patients. It gives the most accurate vital sign readings and can be associated to the patient's electronic medical record. This will automatically pull the vital signs over to the proper time placed by the nurse and eliminate manual errors. The patient's EMR can also order medications, requisitions, lab, and other radiology orders. It has a barcode system in place to assure the correct medications are being administered to the correct patients. There's a smart pump that's connected to the EMR that infuses medications into a patient, such as vasopressors. It programs the proper medication, dosage, and rate automatically to eliminate the risk of human error. Another innovation that we have is ordering wound care consults on all new admissions to the intensive care unit to assure that there are no further pressure injuries and to cover the organization for being held liable for prior injuries. Now, how would I change the story of my organization? I would build staff morale. I would introduce new ways of communication through patterns of relating and patterns of meaning to communicate the need for more staff. I could use our mission and values to urge the need for a safer environment through better nurse-to-patient ratios. This can be done through face-to-face interactions with leaders or in meetings. I can use ways of talking through patterns of professional speech, ways of listening to understand how others are communicating their opinion on my ideas, and ways of being to be present in the immediate moment to change the current situation for the better. Now, looking back on our scenario of the miscommunication with the patient during report, this is how it could have been prevented. A nurse for the freestanding emergency department called my unit to give me a report for the patient coming to my room. I was busy assisting my other patient, so one of the other unit nurses took a report for me and wrote out a sheet with further verbal details. The emergency department nurse gave me a detailed assessment of the patient and accurately described the patient as being a left below the hip amputee with a sacral pressure ulcer that consisted of an exposed protruding femur. I then would properly prepare the room for the arrival of the patient with adequate wound dressing supplies and communicate with the attending physician about necessary orders to care for the patient. The patient arrived safely to the intensive care unit and I was able to efficiently begin the sepsis protocol for the probable infection. Now we always need to remember it is unrealistic to expect extraordinary effort and performance without creating an environment where people feel extraordinarily valued. Here are some of the references I used for this presentation.